never expected a single kiss to ruin my life. But that's exactly what happened that night. The rooftop was alive, drenched in gold from the city lights below, and the bass of the music thudded through my chest like it was syncing with my heartbeat. Champagne flutes clinked, laughter spiraled in high drunken arcs, and I clung to Oliver like a lifeline, smiling at the people he introduced me to. His hand was warm on my lower back, grounding me in the predictable comfort I loved. Everything felt normal, safe. And then I saw him, Leo, Oliver's best friend. Blonde hair catching the lights, green eyes flashing with mischief, or danger, I couldn't tell. He moved through the crowd with that effortless, arrogant swagger that made heads turn. Everyone laughed at his jokes, but somehow I felt like he wasn't joking at all. He stopped halfway across the terrace, looked right at me, and it was like someone had yanked the floor out from under me. My stomach knotted, my chest went tight, and suddenly all the air felt heavy. Oliver didn't notice. He was busy showing me off to someone else, wrapping his arm around me, smiling that perfect, easy smile that used to make me feel safe. I should have felt safe. I thought I was safe. But then, Leo smirked. And suddenly, he was right there, close enough that I could feel his breath. Green eyes locked on mine, smirk daring me, teasing me, like he knew exactly what he was doing. Before I could even blink, before my brain caught up with my body, he leaned in. His lips smashed against mine. Not a quick peck, not a friendly mistake, bold, claiming, all-consuming. The world exploded around us. Whispers, shocked gasps, glasses tipping over, laughter cutting into silence. Everyone froze, staring. Everyone. And then Oliver's voice tore through my skull. "What the fuck, Felix?" He shoved me back, eyes wild, face red, chest heaving. Are you cheating on me?" In front of everyone, I tried to speak. Words caught in my throat. My face was on fire. My legs felt like jelly. Humiliation swirled with shock, and somewhere in the middle of all that, a small infuriating part of me was still stunned by the raw intensity of the kiss. And Leo, that arrogant bastard, just stood there, green eyes glinting, smirk wide, like he'd just won a game I didn't even know we were playing. Oliver stormed off, muttering and shaking, leaving me frozen, heart hammering, drowning in embarrassment, confusion, and something else I wasn't ready to admit yet. What the fuck just happened? I whispered to myself, though the crowd was still staring. 4 years later, I used to think I could build a life safe from chaos, that I could create a world where I was in control, where heartbreak was just a word, and betrayal was something that happened to other people. 4 years later, sitting in my apartment with the sun spilling across my hardwood floors and the city humming below, I wasn't so sure. I'd rebuilt everything. My career, my friends, my little routine that made me feel untouchable. I had a small apartment I loved, the kind of place that smelled like fresh coffee and clean linen, a sanctuary that belonged only to me. I didn't need anyone. I didn't want anyone. I'd learned the hard way that people could hurt you faster than a heartbeat, and some wounds never fully closed. 4 years. That's how long it had been since the night that tore me apart. The rooftop party. The glittering city lights. Oliver's hand warm on my back, guiding me through the crowd like everything was fine, like our love was untouchable. And then, Leo. Blonde hair glinting in the lights, green eyes that didn't just look at you, they pierced you. He moved through the party with that easy arrogance that made everyone notice him, but when his gaze landed on me, it was like gravity shifted. My chest tightened, my stomach knotted, and my mind, it just stopped. Before I could even process it, he was there, smirking, leaning closer. And then, God, he kissed me. Not a polite brush of lips, not a careless mistake. Bold, daring, impossible to ignore. The world froze around us. Whispers, gasps, glasses tipping, friends staring. And Oliver, he exploded, screaming, accusing, humiliated. Red-faced and shaking, he shoved me and called me every name in the book. Called me a liar, A cheat, and then he left. Just like that. Gone. My life shattered in front of everyone I knew, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. And Leo, that arrogant, impossible bastard, vanished, leaving nothing but the memory of that kiss, that smirk, and the chaos he'd caused. The months after were hell. No matter how much I tried, I couldn't find Oliver. He just chose not to trust or even hear me and left me all alone. And so I retreated. Friends tried to reach me, but I couldn't let anyone in. I moved apartments, changed routines, buried myself in work, and rebuilt the life that had been ripped away. I became cautious, cold, careful. Trust was dangerous. People were dangerous. I'd survived heartbreak once. I wasn't letting it happen again. But the ghost of that night followed me, haunting quiet moments. Lying awake at night, the taste of his lips in my memory. Walking through the city and catching a stranger who reminded me of him. Laughing with friends and feeling a pang of longing I hated to admit. Even now, sometimes I could almost feel the pull of that reckless, dangerous energy he carried. The thrill and the humiliation tangled together like barbed wire in my chest. And yet, I hated myself for it. For remembering. For the small, guilty spark of longing that refused to die. I hated that part of me that still thought of him, that still wondered if maybe, just maybe, he had meant it. I shook my head and took a long sip of coffee, trying to drown the memory in the warmth of my routine, the safety I had fought so hard to build. I was supposed to be fine. I was fine. I had survived the worst. And yet, somewhere deep down, I knew the world had a way of crashing in when you least expected it. And I had a feeling, though I couldn't name it yet, that nothing in my careful, rebuilt life could prepare me for what was coming next. A few days later, I sank into my office chair, staring at the stack of papers like if I focused hard enough, they'd vanish. My hands shook, part fury, part disbelief. My lawyer cleared his throat, trying not to enjoy this, but the tension in the room made it impossible to pretend normal. "You're seriously telling me I'm being forced to marry him?" I croaked, sharper than I intended, eyes snapping to Leo. He was leaning against the floor-to-ceiling window, sunlight catching the edges of his blonde hair, arms crossed, that infuriating smirk firmly in place. Green eyes glinting like he already knew he'd won. Calm. Too calm. "I wouldn't call it forced," he said smoothly, voice low, teasing. "I'd call it mutually beneficial." I laughed, a short, bitter bark. Mutually beneficial? Are you kidding me? You humiliated me. You kissed me in front of Oliver and then disappeared like a ghost. And now you expect me to just... I gestured helplessly at the papers. "Marry you?" Leo tilted his head, green eyes serious for the first time. "It's not about me wanting you. It's about your father's debt." "What?" My voice cracked. He walked slowly toward the desk, placing a hand on it, pinning me with that calm, dangerous gaze. "Years ago, your father signed a guardianship and loan agreement. Your inheritance, your apartment, your family's company, they're tied to that debt. If it isn't settled in full within the next month..." His smirk returned, faint but undeniable. "Everything goes to the bank. To Oliver's family. Your mother and sister, they lose everything. Your father made a mistake. You're just paying the price." My stomach dropped. I could feel the air leave my lungs. My lawyer cleared his throat, eyes darting nervously, but Leo's voice filled the room, steady and absolute. "And the way to settle it?" I asked, barely able to breathe. "Marry me," Leo said simply. "It satisfies the clause. It keeps your family whole. You're alive, your company safe. Done." I shook my head. "Why me? You could marry anyone to fulfill this. Anyone." For a flicker, his smirk softened. "Because I don't want anyone else," he said quietly, and then the smirk returned, surface calm, teasing. "And let's be honest, you look pretty stunning in court documents." I wanted to scream, punch him, vanish, my chest burned, lungs tight. That smirk, the calm, dangerous, infuriating smirk, had haunted me for 4 years. And now, it was here, alive, staring me down. Later that evening, the office felt colder than it had all day, though the city lights glittered through the windows like mocking stars. The stack of papers sat between us, Leo leaning casually against the desk as if he'd been waiting for this moment forever. I stared at the first page, my chest tight. Every word felt like a trap. Marriage agreement, legally binding, consequences, clauses. The pen in my hand suddenly felt too heavy to lift. Felix. Leo's voice was soft, low, but carried that teasing edge. Shall we get this over with? I glared at him. Over with? My voice cracked. You don't understand. You don't have a choice, he interrupted, calm, almost cruel in its certainty. But there was a flicker, something beneath the smirk. Concern? Desire? I didn't want to analyze it, not now. I swallowed hard. My hands shook as I picked up the pen. I thought about my mother, my sister, and the staff at my company, all depending on me. The weight of responsibility crushed me, made my jaw ache. This isn't marriage. This is survival. Leo moved closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth from his body, the faint scent of his cologne. My stomach flipped. I hated it. Hated that I hated it. Relax, he murmured, hand brushing mine ever so slightly as I signed the first page. That touch should have made me angry. It should have made me storm out. But instead, it made my pulse spike, my chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with fear. I glanced up at him, and for a heartbeat, his teasing smirk softened. He watched me, eyes flicking from the pen to my face, and I caught a glimpse of something almost vulnerable. You idiot, I thought, but my lips curved slightly against my will. I wanted to hate him, but the truth burned too sharply. Part of me had never stopped thinking about him. That reckless kiss, the way he'd haunted my memories. It wasn't gone. And now he was here, leaning over me, and it felt like my heart was breaking and flipping all at once. I finished the last page, slammed the pen down, and straightened in my chair, trying to appear furious. There, I spat. Happy now? I signed your damn contract. Leo chuckled, slow and low, a sound that made my stomach tighten even more. Ecstatic, he said, green eyes glinting, teasing, dangerous. Though you're trembling. You can admit it, this isn't just paperwork. I clenched my jaw. Don't, I warned. He only smiled wider, calm and unbothered, as if he knew he already had me. And maybe he did. I pushed back from the desk, heart still racing, hands shaking slightly, chest tight, not entirely from anger. The first step was done. The contract was signed. And somehow, I already knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, the smell of burnt coffee hit me before I even opened my eyes. I grabbed the mug off the counter, bitter, and stormed into the kitchen, already bracing for the inevitable confrontation. Of course, there he was, Leo, leaning casually against the counter, arms crossed, smirk still perfectly in place, like nothing in the world mattered except the fact that he was there. Cold coffee? He asked smoothly. You always this grumpy in the mornings? Or am I special? I'm special in the sense that I'm trapped under the same roof with a man who makes me want to strangle him every 5 seconds. I snapped, ignoring the tremor in my voice. He chuckled, slow and deliberate, then reached for the sugar. Our hands brushed, just barely, but my skin burned where they touched. My stomach clenched, and I jerked my hand back like it had caught fire. I don't want... whatever this is between us, I muttered, voice low, angry. Yet, here we are, he said softly, eyes catching mine, green, dangerous, unreadable. He leaned a little closer, just enough that I felt the heat radiating off him. My chest tightened, and I realized I couldn't breathe properly. I slammed the mug down on the counter, the sharp clink echoing through the apartment. He didn't flinch, didn't move. and I stormed past him, throwing open the balcony door, letting the cool morning air slice through the heat he left behind. Weeks passed, and living with him was like walking through a battlefield where every glance, every word, every accidental touch became a trap. The apartment was quiet one evening, the golden hour spilling across the hardwood floors. I was washing dishes when he appeared in the doorway, leaning lazily, smirk softened, just watching me. My stomach tightened. I felt the old memories stir, the rooftop, the kiss, the chaos, and mixed them with the present, right here, right now, in our apartment. Our hands brushed as I reached for a glass. Just a brush, but my pulse spiked. I jerked away instinctively, heat crawling up my neck, heart hammering like it had a mind of its own. "You're impossible," I muttered under my breath, shoulders tense. "Maybe," he said quietly, almost a whisper, "but I seem to know exactly how to get under your skin." I clenched my fists, jaw tight, forcing myself not to look at him. I had survived heartbreak. I had rebuilt my life. I had sworn I wouldn't be drawn into this again. And yet, every part of me was betraying me. The fire, the anger, the humiliation, and the undeniable pull of desire. I hated him. I wanted to punch him. I wanted to run. And part of me needed more. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't dared admit. My anger and my desire were no longer separate. They were tangled together, messy and consuming, and I had no idea how to untangle them. Over 2 months later, I hadn't expected him. Not here, not ever. But there he was, Oliver. The same perfectly poised, infuriatingly charming ex-boyfriend who had walked out of my life 4 years ago. Now, striding into the gala like he owned the room. Black suit, crisp shirt, hair slicked back just enough to look effortless. His hazel eyes scanned the room and landed on me for a split second, and I felt that old coil of panic and anger twist in my stomach. My first thought was, why is he here? I thought I'd left him behind. I hadn't anticipated seeing him mingling, joking, laughing, casually brushing shoulders with Leo like nothing had ever happened. "Felix," he drawled, slow, deliberate, just loud enough for me to hear over the hum of conversations and clinking glasses. "Long time no see." I froze mid-step, coffee cup trembling in my hand. My heart hammered, a storm of fear, disgust, and something else I didn't recognize. And then I noticed it. Leo, perfectly composed, standing beside me. His hand brushed mine under the table, a small protective anchor. He didn't say a word to Oliver, didn't glare or challenge him. Just a look, sharp, calculating, and worried. Quiet worry. I glanced at him and my chest twisted. Why wasn't he confronting Oliver? Why were they so casual? My mind raced. Did they know something I didn't? Was this some deal, some plan I wasn't aware of? Oliver's smirk widened, that infuriating smirk that had haunted my nightmares back in college. "You've moved on fast," he said, letting each word linger like a blade against my ribs. "I always wondered if you were capable of real loyalty, or if you just trade up." A shiver ran down my spine, and not entirely from anger. His eyes, the way he looked at me, held something deeper, something that reminded me of that rooftop, that kiss, the shouting, the humiliation, the long silence that followed. I could feel old wounds reopening, the ones I thought I'd healed. Leo's hand tightened on mine, just enough to ground me. He didn't speak, didn't argue, just held me like a promise. And yet, I couldn't ignore the storm of jealousy that tightened my chest. How dare Oliver waltz in, flaunting the past, like it still mattered? My mouth went dry. I swallowed hard, trying to steady myself. "I'm fine," I said, voice low, brittle. But even I didn't believe it. Oliver tilted his head, a slow, lazy curiosity in his gaze. He said nothing more directly. He didn't need to. Every glance, every small smirk, every lingering look was a reminder of control he thought he still had over me. My stomach churned. Leo's lips twitched at my side. Almost a smirk, almost a warning. My pulse spiked, and I hated myself for it. Why did my chest still thrum like this? Why did my stomach still flip at the way Oliver saw me? The situation was a mess. Oliver's backhanded comments cut through years of careful rebuilding. Leo's calm presence kept me tethered. And I wasn't sure I could untangle my feelings. Anger, fear, desire, jealousy. They were all tangled together. And I realized, with a sinking certainty, that tonight wasn't just a reunion. It was a reckoning. By next week, the whispers started. At family gatherings, in hallways, at business dinners. I could feel eyes on me, like everyone knew the secret I'd been trying to bury. Are they really married for love? Someone asked quietly at a charity gala, the words slicing through the polite hum of conversation. It's just a contract, isn't it? Another whispered, eyes flicking toward Leo, who stood casually by the buffet, sipping champagne, perfectly unreadable. Every word felt like a nail in my chest. The past clawed its way into my present. And Oliver. He didn't have to speak. The way he smiled at old friends, subtly flaunting our history, was enough to make my stomach twist. Leo, however, didn't react outwardly. No grand declarations, no dramatic retorts. Instead, he acted quietly, decisively. The next day, when a colleague tried to make a pointed comment about me, Leo leaned in, whispering a sharp correction, his hand brushing the small of my back. A subtle shield. Later, I found a folder on my desk, something that made me question all that I knew about the truth of my life. I didn't expect to find them. Not here. Not buried in the filing cabinet in Leo's penthouse office. Yet there they were. Folders, legal documents, contracts, letters. All neatly stacked, all bearing my father's signature and Leo's. I froze, hands hovering over the papers. My heart thumped in that familiar, chaotic rhythm I remembered from 4 years ago, the night my life had shifted irreversibly. I opened the first folder, eyes scanning the legalese, the signatures, the clauses. Guardianship, debt, family company, my inheritance. And then it hit me. Oliver's father. The scheming, calculating man who had spent years trying to maneuver my family out of our assets. Who had watched my father struggle under debt and instead of helping, had planned to corner us. Completely. And Oliver had known. Knew every step, every whispered deal. And he did nothing. I could feel my chest tightening, heat rising, anger mingling with disbelief. My voice caught as I muttered under my breath. He just let it happen. Then my eyes flicked to another folder. Leo's handwriting, sharp and confident, the signature bold. He had intervened 4 years ago. While the world, including Oliver, was plotting against me, Leo had quietly arranged everything. The loan, the guardianship, the debt contract with my father. All of it. He had taken control so I wouldn't be crushed, so that my family would survive. I sank into the chair, trembling. My mind raced, trying to parse it all. The reckless, arrogant man who kissed me that night, who haunted my memories. He had been protecting me. All this time. I heard him before I saw him. You found them. I turned sharply. Leo was leaning casually against the doorframe, green eyes calm, but there was something deeper behind them. Not arrogance, not teasing. Something raw, vulnerable. Why? I breathed. Why didn't you tell me? You could have saved me years of... I trailed off, unable to find words. Rage, humiliation, heartbreak, and confusion, all tangled together. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate. Because I couldn't, he admitted. I wasn't just helping your father. I was protecting you. And back then, He stopped, swallowing. I was already in love with you. And I couldn't let him, Oliver, or his father, manipulates you. Make you dependent on them. Make you think you had no choice but to stay trapped. My stomach dropped. Wait. Are you saying All of this. I gestured at the documents. The contract, the debt, the guardianship. That was you. He nodded, close enough now that I could feel his warmth. I arranged it. Signed the contracts with your father. Handled the legal side. All to make sure you'd be safe. And yes, I kissed you that night. It wasn't reckless. It wasn't just arrogance. It was me, trying to reach you before anyone else could control your life. I backed up overwhelmed, my pulse hammered, heart aching. You were in love with me. 4 years ago. He swallowed, green eyes blazing. I've been in love with you since I first saw you. Before Oliver, before anyone. And I was a fool for not saying it sooner, for letting things spiral. But I couldn't just watch you get trapped. I couldn't let him win. And I couldn't lose you. I wanted to scream, to cry, to hit him, to throw myself into his arms. My emotions were chaos, rage at being manipulated, disbelief at the truth, and a sickening thrill that he had cared all along, even when I hated him for that kiss. Then, everything I thought, I whispered, voice shaking. My anger, my hatred. Was it all wrong? Did I misunderstand? Or was I just a pawn in this? He stepped closer, tilting my chin up to meet his gaze. No, you were never a pawn. You were the only one I ever wanted. And I'd do it all again if it meant keeping you safe, keeping you mine. I shook my head, a mix of fury and awe. I don't know what to feel anymore. He smiled faintly, almost ruefully. Good. That's how it's supposed to feel. Messy, confusing. But it's real, Felix. You're real, and I've been waiting my whole life to tell you that. I sank into the chair, eyes wide, pulse racing. My world had shifted again, this time in ways I couldn't untangle. Betrayal, love, obsession, protection, they were all twisted together. And Leo, that infuriating man who had ruined me, saved me, and loved me all at once. He was standing there, calm, daring, dangerous, and utterly undeniable. I wanted clarity. I wanted answers. I wanted to run. But deep down, beneath all the chaos, I realized one thing. I wanted him too. A few weeks later. Weeks had passed since I stumbled across the truth. The truth about Leo, about Oliver, about my father, about the debt, the guardianship, the reckless kiss that had changed everything. And yet, despite the revelation, nothing had exploded. Leo hadn't forced me to confront him, hadn't demanded my feelings, hadn't tried to fix me. We were still strangers married under circumstances neither of us had asked for. But the air between us had softened, subtly, in ways that were dangerous. He still smirked, still teased, but the sharp edges were gone, at least mostly. Now there were small gestures, quiet touches, the tiniest sparks that made my stomach tighten without me knowing why. The apartment felt alive with tension. It was small, intentionally so, and every hallway, every corner, every shared space was a minefield. Even the mundane things, coffee in the morning, brushing past in the narrow kitchen, reaching for the same cup, felt intimate, electric. I was rinsing dishes one evening, hands wet and slippery when I felt him behind me. The subtle shift of air, the faint brush of warmth. My body tensed. "You're blocking the sink," he said softly, casual, almost innocent. "I am not," I snapped, spinning around. My voice was sharper than intended. He leaned closer, just enough that the heat from his body brushed against mine. "Your elbow is touching mine," he said, calm, teasing. My pulse spiked. I jerked away, spinning too fast, and our hands brushed, again, lingering for a fraction too long. Fire shot up my arm. My stomach twisted, a strange mix of frustration, longing, and curiosity. "Careful," I muttered, trying to sound annoyed, failing spectacularly. "Or what?" he asked, voice low, teasing, green eyes glinting. "You'll hit me again?" I slammed the dish down, pretending it was his fault. "Don't test me." He smirked, that same infuriating smirk I remembered from years ago, softened now, more private. intimate. Oh, I'm not testing. I just enjoy the chaos indeed. Even in the smallest moments, bumping elbows while grabbing a mug, brushing past each other in the hallway, arguing over who should take out the trash. The energy between us simmered. Our words were sharp, witty, playful, and sometimes cutting. But underneath every clash, every sarcastic jab, there was heat, a magnetic pull neither of us admitted aloud. One night, late, we found ourselves in the living room. 2 mismatched mugs of coffee, the hum of the city filtering in through the window. I was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through emails, while Leo sat across from me, legs casually crossed, leaning back, smirking. "You've got..." "What, 50 emails?" he asked, arching an eyebrow. 39, I corrected automatically, then realized I was humoring him. "Why do you care?" "Because," he said, tilting his head, "you look stressed." And I don't like stressed spouses, especially when I can sit here, smirk, and watch you mutter at your laptop. I rolled my eyes, but my chest fluttered. He wasn't being domineering. He wasn't the Leo from that night, the reckless, arrogant man who had kissed me in front of everyone. This Leo was teasing, careful, measuring, watching me, studying me. Later, I found myself lingering in the hallway near his bedroom door. He emerged, hair messy, shirt half untucked, yawning. "Oh, hey," he said, voice casual. "Forgot to tell you, your favorite show started a new season." "You remembered," I muttered, a small smile tugging at my lips. He shrugged, eyes glinting. "I have my moments." That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the day's tiny encounters, the brush of his hand, the smirk that lingered longer than it should have, the soft teasing. Every moment was a push and pull, a war of emotions I didn't know how to navigate. It was confusing, frustrating, infuriating. And yet, beneath the sarcasm and banter, I felt it. Something was blooming. Something undeniable. Something that made me think. Maybe the kiss, the chaos, the years of frustration, the debt, the contract, it had all been leading to this. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't terrified of it. I was curious. 2 days later. The rumors started as whispers. Then came the headlines. Loveless marriage. Contract over love. Pictures of me and Leo at events. Him in his sharp suits, me at his side. Captioned like a spectacle. The narrative was clear. I was the kept one. The ornament. He was the cold husband with the perfect mask. And then, like a bad ghost, Oliver reappeared. He found me outside the office late one evening, the street slick with rain. His umbrella tilted rakishly, his smirk the same one that had once charmed me, and now only made my stomach twist. "Felix," he said softly, "you don't belong in this circus. Come back to me. You're still mine." The word mine made my skin crawl. Once, it had felt like safety. Now it felt like a cage. I straightened, holding my umbrella tighter. "No, Oliver. I'm not yours. I was never yours." He blinked, surprised. "You're telling me you're in love with him?" His voice rose, incredulous. "This man, this deal, this contract." I swallowed, heart hammering. Leo's green eyes flashed across my mind. The coffee left on my desk, the silent shields he'd built between me and the world, the way his hand always brushed mine like an anchor. "I'm telling you," I said steadily, "that I want to be with the man who tried to save me. Even when he had no reason to. Even when I hated him. Not with the man who tried to own me." Oliver's face went pale. His smirk faltered. Behind him, the city hummed like a low drum. I felt him there before I saw him. Leo. Standing in the doorway of his car, suit jacket open, tie undone, eyes fixed on me. He had heard everything. Oliver stepped back, swallowed, and muttered something under his breath before retreating into the rain. His footsteps splashed away until he was just another shadow swallowed by the city. And then it was just us. Leo's jaw worked, a muscle ticking. "Felix!" His voice was rough, unsteady. I turned to him, pulled a folded, crumpled piece of paper from my pocket. The original contract, the one that had tied me to him all this time. My hands shook, but I didn't stop. I tore it straight down the middle. The paper ripped like a sigh, echoing off the wet pavement. "No more contracts," I said. My voice cracked but held. "Take back everything. The property, the money, the safety net. I'll find a way to take care of my mother and sister myself. I don't need this anymore." Leo flinched as if I'd struck him. "Felix, what are you doing?" His voice was almost a whisper. "You think I've wanted you because of a contract?" Tears stung my eyes. "I don't know what you want. I can't do it like this, so tell me now. Tell me if you want me like this. No contract, no ties, no leverage. Just me silence." The rain between us, his eyes glinting under the streetlight. Then he moved, fast, sure, crossing the distance between us in 3 long strides. His hands framed my face, thumbs brushing away tears. "Since forever," he said, voice low, fierce. "And always." And then he kissed me. Not like before, not to provoke, not to prove a point. A kiss that was soft and hard at once, trembling and steady, tasting of rain and tears and everything we'd survived. I kissed him back, my hands fisted in his shirt, his arms locked around me like a vow. The contract lay in pieces at our feet, the city moving on around us. But for us, the world had gone still. A few months later, our life had shifted into something unrecognizable. Not a performance, not a battle, a home. Morning light spilled across the kitchen where Leo, still in pajama bottoms, hair a mess, was flipping pancakes with a focus that made me laugh. He burned the first one, cursed, and tossed it into the trash. I came up behind him, arms sliding around his waist. "You're improving," I teased. "Don't push it," he grumbled, but leaned back into me all the same. Our apartment was cluttered with life now. His jackets on my chairs, my books on his desk, socks lost in the dryer. We still bickered. We still teased. But every moment hummed with something new. Ease, warmth, laughter. Friends stopped whispering, "arranged marriage," and started saying, "they're good together." His family had stopped calling it a deal. They called it home. Weekends meant hikes, me teasing him about mud, him reaching back for my hand without thinking. Movie nights meant me asleep on his chest, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my skin. And some nights, like this one, he came up behind me while I brushed my teeth, arms wrapping around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. Our reflection in the mirror, his green eyes, my sleepy smile, looked like something out of a life I'd once thought impossible. "You're mine now," he murmured softly against my neck, voice low but full of warmth. "All of you." I spat, rinsed, turned to face him, pressing my forehead to his. "Finally," I said, grinning, "and you're mine." He kissed me then, slow, sure, tasting of toothpaste and laughter. No contract, no leverage, no past ghosts, just us. And as he carried me to bed, our laughter trailing behind us, I realized what we'd built. Not a deal, not a cage, but a life. Messy, imperfect, beautiful, chosen, forever. The end. Have you ever hated someone? Only to realize they were the one you were meant to love. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to become part of our Rainbow Force, and consider joining our membership for early access and exclusive content. Stay wholesome.